Good morning, everyone, and apologize for technical issue. These things happen, of course. We can check everything for hours, and then the moment we start, there's but it's okay. We all had this kind of experience, and we'll survive. So welcome to everybody, and I'm very happy to be here and to open this event. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Thierry Rocher. I am Director for Evaluation at the DEP, which is the statistical department of the French Ministry of Education. But I'm standing here today as the elected chairperson of the IEA Association. And it's an honor and privilege to me to be in Rome first. It's very, of course, always pleasant to be in Rome. And very honored to open this event and to also to guide you a bit through this event and our agenda. I want to just to welcome you, the attendees that are present to this event, just for you to know that the event is live streamed on YouTube, and there will be an opportunity to ask some question, Q&A in the YouTube, but also with you here in the audience, of course, during all the event. I want to thank a lot our host, LUMSA University and INVALSI, for hosting us in this beautiful place in the city center of Rome. We have some views on some monuments and historical buildings. That's really beautiful. And thank you for organizing all this on site. I think it's very important to have the opportunity to meet in person for such kind of event. I would like to extend my gratitude to the European Commission's Directorate General for Education, Youth, Sport and Culture, and European Education and Culture Executive Agency for EU funding towards Erasmus Plus countries. I think it's important to acknowledge that there was a grant support from the European Commission for the European component, and it has been really vital for the studies international and regional success. So I really want to thank the European Commission for all the support they give to ICCS, but not only, also to ICLS, to the IES studies, which also shows the importance that IES studies have had and growing during this recent period. Last but not least, I want to thank also all the people who participate to contribute to the ICCS studies, namely of course, the IES staff, the consortium, with all the components of the consortium, all the staffs around the world, and especially in Europe, with the NRCs and their teams, and of course, all the schools and teachers who participate to the studies. And I think it's important to thank them very warmly in order to just acknowledge that we have all these beautiful results today thanks to them. So, just very rapidly, we have a tight agenda. It will be in two parts. First part will be about launching the European report and have some key takeaways. And then we will have a break around 11 o'clock. And then we will have a panel discussion with some countries' perspectives and the European Commission perspective as well. So I would like, without waiting more, welcome Roberto Ricci for a word on behalf of the Ministry of Education. I will just introduce in a few words Roberto Ricci. He's the president of INVALSI since 2021, and he has been working there in INVALSI since 2008 as responsible for national assessment and coordinator of the research area. After obtaining a PhD in statistical methodology for scientific research, he has been working for over 20 years in the field of measurement of learning through standardized tests. He's a member of the IEA General Assembly and of the governing boards of OECD, PISA, and TALIS. In recent years, he has been involved in the national implementation of important evaluation tools in schools, such as the measurement of the school effect, the so-called added value, and the definition of the diachronic longitudinal change in learning levels. And recently, he has been engaged in the transition to computer-based testing of INVALSI assessment. It's nationwide assessment, I have to say, in Italy. It's very impressive, the way how you conduct that on a computer base. And also, he has worked on an adaptive perspective at the individual level in this frame of the national assessment. He's a trainer at school to foster a constructive dialogue on the issues of external evaluation, and is the author of many informative and technological methodological articles on aspects related to large-scale standardized assessment. My dear Roberto, the floor is yours, please, to welcome us.
Thank you, Thierry, for your very kind words. I'm very happy to be here. I would like to express my deep thank you to all of you for this very beautiful location in order to hear the results that I think are very, very important because as related with the European Union, the European community, and I think today, even more than in the past, is very, very important to discuss about the results and the feeling, the perception that our students have about a community like Europe. Especially in these last 2 years, I think is extremely, extremely important. And on behalf of the Minister of Education and Merit, I'm very happy and glad to read. I beg your pardon because it's not the most pleasant experience to hear me read aloud independently of the language. So I beg your pardon in advance, but I have the pleasure to read the letter that the Minister of Education sent to us because unfortunately he's not able to attend the meeting. Chairman, EU, IA, LUMSA, and INVALSI's authorities, distinguished guests, participants to the launch of the ICCS 2022 European Report on Results. I would have loved to personally welcome you to Italy today for the prestigious European event. Unfortunately, due to prior commitments, I'm not able to be here. Nevertheless, I would like to extend my warm greetings to all of you and share my thoughts on the report that is being presented today at the European level. It's my pleasure to welcome you to our beautiful country, and I wish you all the best for your endeavors. Italy has always shown a keen interest in the world of international educational research. It is one of the countries that has actively participated in all the international comparative surveys since their inception. It should be emphasized, not without a touch of pride, that over time our country has been involved not only as beneficiary, but also as an active participant in the decision-making process. Moreover, Italy has provided appreciated methodological and operational contribution based on its own experience on several occasions and as an accredited component. Globally, we are living in the post-pandemic era that continues to have devastating impacts on the world's population at all levels. It's now widely acknowledged that one of the most significant impacts has been on the learning levels of students worldwide. At present, objective measurement system that can identify where intervention is needed, where it is urgent, and where it is appropriate are more critical than ever before. In the various countries where they are conducted, international surveys gather comparable and reliable information that is essential for understanding the educational effectiveness of different school systems and for setting appropriate responses to the changing scenarios and the constant demands of current time. Goal 4 of the UN Agenda 2030 aims to ensure that everyone has access to inclusive and equitable quality education and lifelong learning opportunities. Sub-goal 4.1 specifically targets the need to provide free, equitable, high-quality primary and secondary education to boys and girls, leading to effective learning outcome by 2030. The European Commission declared 2023 at the European Year of Skills, with the aim of addressing the mismatch between education and unemployment. To bridge this gap, it is increasingly important for us to consciously exercise our role as global citizens. Considering the global challenges that we face today, it is essential to have an informed and aware citizenry. It is in this context, the teaching of civic education becomes not only useful but necessary. Our country is advocating for the creation of a European space of citizenship education. The European Union cannot achieve a prosperous and peaceful future without its citizens developing a strong sense of belonging based on fundamental values. Integrating this teaching in school of all levels is a crucial step towards realizing this vision. Therefore, international surveys are essential in building a research network vital to our education system's development. The analytical and reporting approach of international research set an example for all and calls for precise tasks and duties. The research community must continue to learn from research such as ICCS, constantly question not only the methodological aspects but also the relevance of the data produced in technical support for the policies that are responsibility of government leaders in the national educational system. Dear participants in the meeting, welcome to Italy, and I wish you a productive session. Thank you so much. Thank you for your passion and for my very boring reading. Thank you so much, and I wish you a very interesting day, and the floor is yours. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Roberto, and thank you to. It was absolutely not boring, I have to say, and a very, very important letter to remind us that the importance of the job we do at IEA, and all together, different countries aiming the same goal. That means to produce data of quality to inform policy and research and reflection on education. So I think it's a very important start of this event, and also to remind the increasingly importance of this topic of citizenship and education. And we will have the opportunity to hear a lot about why it's important from the study's results now, and then afterwards from country perspectives. So thank you again, Roberto, for this word. I will switch now to our first session about the European report. And we will have three speakers with us. So Wolfram Schulz, Valeria Damiani, and Ralf Karsten. I will briefly introduce them and let them the floor. So first speaker, Dr. Wolfram Schulz, is the ICCS 2022 International Study Director. He's a Principal Research Fellow at ACR, which is the Australian Council for Educational Research. And he has been working at ACR since 2001. He was also co-director of the National Assessment Program Civics and Citizenship for 2010 and to 2016, and was assessment coordinator for ICLS 2013 and 2018, which is, as you may know, an IEA study which assesses student abilities in the frame of information and communication technologies. Then we will have Dr. Valeria Damiani. She is a ICCS 2022 consortium member. She has a PhD in education and is an associate professor at LUMSA University here. What a lovely place to work, I have to say. She worked as a researcher for the second cycle of the ICCS 2016 and was a member of the Joint Management Committee for ICCS 2022. Her research interests include civic and citizenship education, global citizenship education, education for sustainable development, and social inclusion. And last but not least, we will then hear from Ralph Karsten for the key takeaways from the European report results. Ralph is a senior research advisor at IEA Hamburg. He coordinates the development of new studies, projects, and partnerships with a focus on non-IEA studies and provide technical and methodological advice to the IEA management. With a professional background in primary and lower secondary teaching, Ralph contributed to many international assessments. He served as the co-director of ICCS 2016 and is currently co-director of the OECD's TALIS 2024. He is also a co-convener, which is interestingly a new, let's say, network of the newly established ERA, the European Research Association. I forgot, E is missing, but it's a European Research Association. And there is a new network, the number 34, Research on Citizenship Education. And we will hear a bit more about it later today in this session. So thank you to our three speakers. So please, Wolfram, the floor is yours.
Merci Thierry. Buongiorno, good morning. It's a pleasure to be here. I should probably also add to, we heard a little bit about Italy and this study. We have had many meetings here in Italy, and it's also worth noting that for ICCS, we've always worked with our Italian colleagues here from the Associated Research Center at LUMSA University, but before also at Roma Tre University. So we have a strong connection with Italy. And we had also our first NRC meeting, I believe, here in Rome in 2019. So here we go. So I will just say a few words about the study, and then I'll pass on to my colleague Valeria, who will talk about the more interesting part, which are actually the results of our study in terms of the European results. So the International Civic and Citizenship Education Study, ICCS, now in its third cycle, is actually, and should be highlighted, the only study that exists that it's dedicated to this learning area. Other international studies may have parts that are somehow related to it, but they are not only not capturing the whole range of things that are important when you think about civic and citizenship education studies. And other than that, of course, we have in some countries national assessments related to this learning area. And also, and this is important in this context, it's also, to my best knowledge, the only study that has regional components. So item material that is dedicated to region-specific issues, and that's actually what we are going to hear about from Valeria in a moment. So we do assess students in their 8th year of schooling, so that is typically the grade 8 or year 8 in lower secondary. It marks now the third cycle of this study, and it was the first cycle where computer-based assessment was actually introduced, and 2/3 of countries did now the students' instruments and on computer. And we also, maybe I should say, some of the teacher and school questionnaires were already online before in previous cycles. So it's as in other studies, it's catching up, and of course the plan is also to move everywhere only to computer-based assessments. And what do? We gather data about how young people are prepared by our education systems for citizenship. So we measure learning outcomes such as civic knowledge, civic attitudes, and indicators of engagement, very often prospective engagement given the relatively young age. And we also collect contextual data from students, from schools, and also from teachers and at the system level. We have different instruments. We have a test of civic knowledge, a rotated test. And we always have items from the previous cycle that we can measure basically changes over time. This time we had a bit more of a complex design because we had also computer-based assessment in a majority of countries, so we had some items developed that use the opportunity you can use on a computer. And so we had we had 11 that were for paper and computer, and I had 3 clusters of items that were actually only on computer. And the questionnaire assessment is also there, that students report on their background and attitudes and engagement related to civic and citizenship education. We also have contextual instruments for teachers and schools. We have questions on aspects of civic and citizenship education to school principals or teachers of the target grade, that's usually grade 8. And also questions on school characteristics, school climate, and their relationship to the community. And then we have regional questionnaires. In this of relevance here in this context is, of course, the European Student Questionnaire. And these questions that we derive are basically targeted at things that we think of particular relevance for the regional context. We also had a Latin American student questionnaire, but unfortunately, only 2 countries at the end implemented it, so that was, unlike previous cycles, not quite as successful this time. And then we also get national centers to, via an online questionnaire, provide us with data about the national context, which are important to take into account because we have a huge diversity of context for this learning area. And if we look at the map of Europe, in Europe, we have quite a bit of coverage, and of course it's never quite complete because countries make their, our education system make their independent decisions about whether to participate or not. A lot here in Europe we were quite successful because there's also funding coming from the European Commission for our study. So, but you see we have quite a bit of coverage from different parts of Europe in ICCS 22. And then at the end we collected data in 2022. That was shortly after the pandemic, so it was quite challenging, especially we had also a field trial right in the middle of a pandemic. And at the end, within the European countries that also gathered these data via a European regional questionnaire, we had almost 3,000 school principals, over 30,000 teachers, almost 70,000 students of the 8th grade, and 18 countries and 2 German states that participated as benchmarking entities. With the European component of our study, we assessed questions related to European identity, how students think of themselves in terms of Europe and how they think schools have prepared them to learn about Europe, attitudes toward freedom of movement, which is a very relevant theme in the European context, and so issues like sustainability, so cooperation between countries and what they actually do themselves. We also had similar differences in the International Student Questionnaire. Then, of course, we asked about attitudes toward Europe, perceptions of how will Europe develop in the future, and just should keep in mind we're in very challenging times these days. We have a war in Ukraine, we just went through a pandemic, so there are a lot of tension here. And also expectations regarding the individual future. So in times of many crises that you perceive, how do they actually feel about the future and what will happen? So these were kind of the aspects we addressed mainly through the European questionnaire, but we also took data from the student questionnaire, from the student test, and from the teacher questionnaire to basically have a more broader picture of what's happening in terms of civic and citizenship education in European countries. And with this, I just pass on to Valeria, who talks about the key results from this part of ICCF. Thank you.
Grazie, Wolfram. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. First of all, let me say that it is a pleasure for me and for my colleagues, Gabriella Grusti and Bruno Losito, to host this event here in Rome at LUMSA University and to share with you the key results of the ICCS 2022 European Report. So as Wolfram said in his introduction, one of the aspects that has been measured through the European Student Questionnaire is related to European students' sense of their European identity. And results highlighted that the majority of the students reported that they see themselves as European, that they are being proud to live in Europe, and that they feel part of Europe. When we looked at the association between the derived scale from European student sense of their identity and the trust in civic institution, we found out that students who expressed higher level of trust in civic institution also tended to have stronger sense of European identity compared to those students with lower levels of trust. We've been asking students about their sense of European identity since the first cycle of ICCS. And so when we measured changes over time, we observed that students' sense of their European identity has increased, with a stronger increase for countries that took part in the first and in the third cycle of the study, so in ICCS 2009 and 2022. This question also included two optional items for EU member countries about their identity, European Union identity. And also in this case, majority among the students reported that they felt part of the EU and were proud that their country was member of the EU. We also asked students about their opportunities to learn about Europe at school. And most of them reported that they had the opportunity to learn about the history of Europe, and this result is consistent with the findings we got from the last cycles. There were also different variations across countries about students' opportunities for learn about Europe. For example, for opportunities to learn about Europe's political and economic systems or cooperation between European countries, political and social issues at the European level, and opportunities for learn about the European Union. In order to have a better understanding of the school context at the European level in relation to the teaching and learning of the EU, we have included in the European report 3 questions that were part of the teacher questionnaire. So teachers reporting on their students' opportunities to learn about civic-related topics and skills, teachers' self-reported preparedness in teaching civic-related topics and skills, and teachers' opportunities to attend professional development activities. All these 3 questions included 3 optional items related to the European Union. So about 2/3 of teachers reported that their students had the opportunities to learn about the EU, and the same proportion of them also felt prepared to teach about the European Union. On the other hand, on average, less than half of the teachers reported that they had opportunities to attend professional development in pre-service or during in-service or both, about the European Union, of course. We've also asked students about their attitudes towards the free movement of people within Europe, and findings highlighted that nearly all of them strongly support the freedom of movement within Europe for European citizens for working reasons. Again, we've measured these aspects since the last cycle of the study, and we found out that there were no significant changes in student endorsements of freedom of movement between ICCS 2016 and 2022. We also asked students about their attitudes related to restriction of movement, and we observed considerable variation across participating countries, with several of them in which majority of students expressed an agreement for additional regulations on to the movement of European citizens within Europe. So we saw from the introduction, sustainability is one of the key new focus area of the study, and we've been measuring it through the European Student Questionnaire as well. And we asked students about their attitudes in relation to different forms of cooperation to protect the environment. And most of them were in favor this kind of sustainable cooperation in relation to sustainability issues. For example, 92% of them agreed with the statement that European countries should promote an economic growth sustainable for the environment, but we also had higher percentages of students agreeing that European countries should have common laws to protect the environment or should promote the use of renewable energy sources. We also asked about students' political consumerism and their sustainable behaviors in their daily lives. And findings highlighted that students refused to buy certain goods, mostly in consideration of their environmental impact. For example, more than half of them reported that they have been having bought green products or asking their parents or guardian to do so in the last 12 months. Students' consumerism political behavior seem to be less affected by the social impact of the products. For example, whether the good have been produced using child labor or violating the rights of the employees. In relation to students' sustainable behaviors in their daily lives, we observed that most students reported that they have reduced the use of electricity, reduced food waste, have repaired rather than replaced items they owned in the last year. For both questions, we observed considerable differences across participating countries. When we observed student attitudes towards Europe, we found out that majorities among European students strongly endorsed cooperation among European countries on a very wide range of issues, especially in the adoption of common rules to prevent and combat terrorism and the recognition of educational qualification achieved in another country. We also asked students about their positive and negative expectation about the future of Europe, and we recorded large variations across countries with negative scenarios viewed by students as most likely to happen related to increased economic differences between rich and poor countries and the influence of a limited group of rich people in politics. When we looked at the results related to the positive scenarios that young Europeans see as possible, students held positive expectation about the future of Europe in relation to, again, strong cooperation among European countries, the strengthening of democracy, the improved access to healthcare for poor people, and the increased number of women in politics or among political leaders. We also have asked students about their attitudes toward the European Union, and the majority of them agreed or strongly agree with statements related to the EU promoting the respect for human rights all over Europe, the positive impact of EU because it allows countries to share a common set of rules and laws, positive impact of the EU for the economy of individual countries, and the fact that the EU makes Europe a safe place to live and promotes the freedom of speech. On the other hand, when we asked about the negative attitudes toward the European Union, about 2/3 of European students considered the large influence of the richest member countries on EU policies as one of the most negative aspects. In the European report, we have also included 2 optional items that were part of the student questionnaires related to student trust in European institutions, namely European Commission and the European Parliament, and student expectation to vote in European elections. And findings highlighted that more than half of the students expressed trust in the European Commission and in the European Parliament and were expecting to vote in European elections. On average, student trust in European institutions was higher than student trust in their national governments across participating countries. When we looked at the association between attitudes and behaviors with civic knowledge, we observed that most of the attitudes and behaviors are related with higher level of civic knowledge. So student attitudes toward free movement, student endorsement of cooperation, student positive attitudes toward the EU, and Student sustainable behaviors are associated with civic knowledge levels that are A or B, so high levels of civic knowledge, compared to student attitudes toward restriction of movement and student negative attitudes toward the EU that are associated with lower level of civic knowledge. We observe the same pattern when we analyze the association between attitudes and behaviors and students' socioeconomic background, with the same set of variables having has a strong association with students' socioeconomic background that is at or above country average. On the contrary, the student attitudes toward restriction of movement and student negative attitude toward the EU are associated with the socioeconomic background that is below country average. So, main findings and implications. Results highlighted that most European 8th graders hold a strong sense of European identity, and that this sense has increased across ICCS cycle and is associated with trust in civic institutions. So these results stress once again, as it was in the previous cycle, the coexistence of multiple belongings in our young Europeans and the coexistence of national and supranational identity. We also observed that there is a strong support by students for the cooperation among European countries on a wide range of issues, including sustainability, and that the students support freedom of movement for European citizens within Europe. So these findings highlight that our young Europeans care and endorse two of the main key issues of contemporary Europe, that are the cooperation among countries and the possibility of free movement. In relation to the school context, European lower secondary students reported that they have mostly the opportunity to learn about the history of Europe. We have, however, observed, both from teachers and student points of view, that there are large variations and widespread opportunities to learn about Europe, with room for improvement for schools' provisions of learning about European-related topics and issues, and also for improved and additional opportunities for professional development of teachers. We observed strong association between students' knowledge and several attitudes and behaviors, and these findings are in line with those from the ICCS 2022 International Report. So again, the development of students' civic knowledge is key, is very relevant in association with citizenship attitudes. And this implies in turn, of course, that school and teachers are crucial agents for developing young people understanding and awareness within the different European systems. And this is my last slide. We also observed that students had quite strong attentions for their sustainable and political consumerism behavior. Again, this is a finding that is in line with those from the ICCS 22 International Report. So our European also care and hold positive attitudes toward the protection of the environment. Also for this aspect, we could see additional actions for schools in order to promote the social and economic dimension for sustainability and to foster student awareness on their purchasing behavior. So with this, I thank you, grazie mille, and I'll pass on Ralph.
Hello, and it's a pleasure to be here. And I would like to provide some reflections on these European results and module itself, announce the release of the International Database for Secondary Analysis today, and also give a brief outlook and extend an invitation to ICCS 2027, the next cycle of this journey. So the notion that civic and citizenship education is important is not surprising or new. We see it underpins the ability of schools as institutions to nurture active citizenship. It is more relevant than ever in the current and continuously changing context in Europe, but also beyond. And it relates back to the remarks that we heard from Minister Valditara also earlier today. However, on the other side, the international results indicate that our upwards trends, the positive trends in civic knowledge and understanding that we observed between 2009 and 2016 have come to a stall. And in fact, in many of the European countries, we see now a decline, and these gains appear to have vanished. At the same time, we still see relatively large gaps and variables, gender, language, home, parental, or immigration background that explain large gaps in civic knowledge and understanding, which in turn, as we have heard from Wolfram and from Valeria, are related positively to attitudes to engagement and to behavioral intentions. So while there is these concerns, there only seems to be a limited amount or sense of crises or urgency or action at the moment based on these results. On a more positive note, we can clearly see and tell from the data that the implementation, how schools and teachers locally implement civic and citizenship education, has a relatively clear and also positive relationship with the types of things that we hold positive. And that's related to the learning opportunities that they have in the classroom. It's about the opportunities they have to participate in the school decision-making, but also in the community. And it further relates to, and that's a very strong predictor, to the type of climate that classrooms have. Where it's more open, it tends to be related to more higher levels of civic knowledge and behavioral intentions. So looking at the European results, and just highlight some of the observations we made that also Valeria spoke about, is higher levels of civic knowledge and understanding tend to be related to more positive attitudes towards the EU, or students are more likely to engage in sustainable behaviors, or they would be more inclined to support cooperation among European countries. So in that way, civic education seems to matter a great deal. And this learning area, from our perspective, warrants more than just a global perspective. It's a relatively unique feature for ICCS to have these regional modules, and we hope to have more of them again in the next cycle in 2027, because regions put varying interest or follow varying policy agendas, and we'll hear a little bit more about the European agendas in the second segment of today's event also. So they're quite unique to ICCS, and they also bridge between the global context, which then lacks nuance or local context, and the very local context that the national research coordinators know about. Also, what I really like to stress and like about the study, that the development of these modules is really a participatory process among the researchers and among the teams working on them. So they really select the topics that they think are most valuable to be investigated in any given cycle. And then finally, the data that we gathered through this European questionnaire add and supplement and provide additional depth and nuance to the international results. And with that, I would like to announce, and I just checked the website, it's up already, that the ICCS 2022 database is up and available as open access resource. It is available in SAS and SPSS and R format. It comes together to make the entry into analysis easier for people with a comprehensive user guide. It also comes with an analysis tool, the IEA IDB Analyzer, and you can download it for free from the IEA website of today. You can see the volume of data that's in there. You also heard from Wolfram and Valeria what type of information is collected. And we really like to invite you to delve into this open access resource that is seen as a really robust database for studying relationships and all of these measures in a European but also in a global context. That stresses IEA's and ICCS's holistic view on education. It clearly goes beyond just foundational skills such as mathematics, science, or reading literature. And IEA is committed actually all the way back to the 1970s to this particular learning area. It also is holistic in the way that it is set up. It captures antecedents, it captures processes and also outcomes of learning in this particular area. So how much citizenship education is provided, what do teachers know, what's the professional development background, what's the school support and the leadership support, and what happens in the classroom. So we see it as a rich resource. And with that, the ICCS data can now be linked to, for example, the topic of environmental awareness, as also investigated by IEA's mathematics and science study, or the engagement that students have with information, digital information on the internet, as measured by ICILS. 2 studies in 2023 that will be released later this year. And it also feeds into European agendas, be it the agenda of the Council of Europe, the reference framework, competencies for democratic culture, or the European Parliament's 2022 action towards citizenship education, and also the Council's conclusions and the European Commission's work towards this area, on which you will hear a little bit more later in the event. And finally, this is not the last output from ICCS 2022. We are currently drafting, and it's far advanced, we're drafting the technical report, which will be released on the IEA website relatively soon. And there will also be additions from multiple series, the Research for Education series, the teacher snippets, of which one is available to you here in the room, translated into Italian, out in the front, and also policy briefs that address more a policy audience. So more outputs based on ICCS 2022 are to come. And as Thierry has already mentioned, there is a new network in the European Educational Research Association, Network 34, which will have its inaugural platform in the conference at the end of August in Cyprus. We have almost 50 paper contributions and symposia. Valeria Damiani happens to be the link convener, the main convener of this network. So you will see lots of debate and engagement with the topic continued at this really, really relevant European platform. Moving on, I would like to introduce you to ICCS 2027. So the journey continues, and it actually started quite a while ago. About ICCS, these are now known facts. It's the only dedicated study, and one might add it's also now the longest running study of civic and citizenship education that is there. It includes students' knowledge and understanding and attitudes and engagement. It had iterations in 2009, 2016, 2022, and now also 2027. So there is a really rich database to look into issues of trends, but also into contemporary issues at the moment. The assessment will be fully digital. We still had a couple of countries who administered on paper, but it will be fully digital in 2027. And we'll continue to collect contextual data from all of these spheres that Wolfram has mentioned in the front part of the presentation. New areas of interest, we'll begin to discuss them with a variety of countries that will come to Hamburg at the end of next week for the first meeting of national research coordinators. And we'll discuss these topics, whether it's students' engagement with digital information, whether it's the notion of violent and armed conflict and war, whether it is the issue of social cohesion in society or trust in institutions. We'll debate all of those topics and then select for further development the ones that we see important as taking forward for ICCS 2077 as early as next week. The benefits of participating for countries are quite obvious, but I'll just go through them. It investigates the way in which young people are prepared for their roles as citizens. It will continue to look into issues of global relevance and link to the policy agendas there. Target 4.1 was mentioned as part of the UN agenda, but there's also Target 4.7, for which ICCS has already been mentioned as one of the richest sources of information on the topic of global citizenship education and education for sustainable development. Yeah, I think I just said that. And it will continue to make use of this really good practice of having regional modules, but also the possibilities for countries to adapt materials to the local context and also run extensions, as was done in a couple of cases, linking to national assessments or have site studies to enrich the database and make it more useful for the particular countries. In sum, that will mean it will support informed decision-making in this particular area as the evidence becomes stronger. So For ICCS 2027, there is an information package available on the IEA's website. Parts of it have been translated also to Spanish. The European Commission has committed to supporting and continuing its great support for Erasmus Plus countries, which is something that we're really, really grateful for. And if you or any of the viewers now online are interested to find out more, then please contact us at this email address, and we can engage with you, provide further information, come onto a call. We're also in the process of planning regional webinars to get more countries interested in this particular research opportunity. And with that, I would like to close, and Thierry has already mentioned the thousands of schools that have contributed to this report and the tens of thousands of students and teachers that gave us their time and that were open to support this research project. We're extremely grateful to all of the national research coordinators and the teams in the countries. We're of course very grateful for the European Commission for their support. But I would like to highlight the authors of the European report now. First and foremost, Valeria Damiani, for putting this, and it was a lot of work and it was hard work on a shoestring timeline. So thank you very much for putting this report together. And the co-authors who are here with us today is Bruno Losito and also Gabriele Agrusti from LUMSA University, not only for your work on the report, but also for the many, many years and cycles that you have contributed to ICCS. I think it's quite spectacular. And finally, and certainly not last, is Wolfram Schulz, the International Study Center, the International Study Director from the Australian Council for Educational Research. And I would like to thank you in particular for the many years and frankly decades of support for ICCS and your amazing leadership. Further thanks go to the research teams, the operational teams, the sampling, the data teams, the communication teams, for ACR and IEA in Amsterdam, in Hamburg, and in Melbourne. So I would like to thank you all very much. Herzlichen Dank. Grazie mille. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much to our three speakers for all the richness of the results that you can see of the report. It's amazing what we can learn about all this data, and it's only a small part, of course, so I will encourage you to dive into the report more in depth. Just to say that we are supposed to have a Q&A session now, but keep your question in the audience and ask your question in the YouTube live channel. And we will address all these questions for our three speakers now, all together with the panelists after the break. So we will have a 15-minute break now, and just stay tuned. And if you are in person, just come back sharply at 20 past 11, let's say. And we will have a different perspective from Spain, from Sweden, Spain, Sweden, the Commission, sorry, I forgot, you are not a country yet, but European Commission, sorry, Daniele. So three perspectives, very important to know more about the survey. Just after the break, so 20 past 11, so please stay tuned. And we will have also Italy, sorry Roberto, I don't have my note, and Roberto will know, of course, Roberto will explain a lot of things about Italy. Italy, Spain, and Sweden, and European Commission, just after the break, 20 past 11, thank you very much.
Hello. Yeah. My friends in that situation, their children speak English fluently, but because I'm not British, my kids just answer this French all the time.
The answer we really want to give here is also that we'd love to build people relationship again with the Council of Europe. But they were in deep shit when to leave, so that is what mainly put them out. And that's why they also went wide as well. Forceful messages about these. But they're all about rule of law and human rights and education. But the Russians are now out, so they can say whatever they want. I'm not going to say that, but it's not but if there's interest in the Council of Europe,
Some of my children are answering, speaking in English. Yeah. It was all very adorable. Yeah, exactly. So it's yeah. It is confusing for everybody. I need to learn Swedish accent when speaking English. Yeah.
so we self-inflicted.
When we are yes, exactly. When you're gonna Sorry, we're gonna start soon. Please come back.
So we stay all seated, right?
Yes.
Ah, oh, okay. Thank you. Whoa. It's a bit loud. No. All right. Let's have this mic. Thank you very much. Welcome back. Welcome back in person. Welcome back online for the second session with our panelists with different perspectives. So we will have with us to talk about the European report and their country perspectives on the main findings or what is the most relevant for them. We will have Daniele Vidoni from the European Commission. We have Roberto Ricci from Italy, Carmen Tovar Sanchez from Spain, and Stephanie Plenty from Sweden. So I will introduce them for a short presentation for their part at first, and then we will engage a Q&A session. So I would like to first start by introduce you Daniele Vidoni is Policy Coordinator at the European Commission at the Directorate General for Education and Culture, Evidence-Based Policy and Evaluation Unit. Daniele Vidoni is specialized in evaluating public policies, and he previously worked with DG Competition and DG Regional and Urban Policy. Formerly, he led the Evaluation Research Unit at Italy's INVALSI, and he holds a PhD in Economics of Education from Boston University. His work is published in various international journals and books. So you start, Daniele, with the two main questions. What is the relevance of the study for citizenship and education broadly? And can you give some example of how data from ICCS can inform policies and practices?
Thanks. Sorry about the sound, and thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, INVALSI and LUMSA, for the invitation, and especially I would like to thank IEA and all the teams that have been working on ICCS, Wolfram, Bruno, Valeria, Gabriella, for the excellent work done through the years and the support that we receive from the information of ICCS. Well, just to get right away to the main question that was asked, meaning the relevance of the study, I would like to indeed go back to something that Ralph briefly mentioned in the previous session, meaning the Council conclusions on the contribution of education and training to strengthening common European values and democratic citizenship that were just taken at the end of November of 2023. In these conclusions, the Council invites Member States and the Commission to give more relevance to education and common European values and to promote democratic citizenship in the education and training policy agenda. The European Commission has, of course, embraced this call to work in this direction, and the study, ICCS, is one of the tools that we have in order to work in this direction. As Wolfram mentioned before, ICCS is the most comprehensive and possibly the only source of information available to us to understand the situation of civics and citizenship education in school across European countries and beyond. And the relevance of the data provided by ICCS is proven by the type of investment that the European Commission makes to support the study. In 2022, in the 2022 cycle, we supported 18 member states, We supported Erasmus Plus, meaning 18 member states and 2 additional countries to participate to ICCS with 75% of the international fees. And as Ralph also mentioned, we are prepared to do the same also for the new cycle. So the importance of this data is proven by a widespread amount of information in different topics that are relevant for us, and I will mention just two. The first, was mentioned already by Valeria, and it's the issue of sustainability. There is an increasing awareness that we need to meet our own needs without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. And the schools have an important role in developing such awareness. A chapter of the next European Education and Training Monitor 2024 will be dedicated to the topic of sustainability, and the data from this chapter will be derived mostly from the ICCS 2022 study. So we're interested in understanding student knowledge of sustainability issues, especially from the perspective of environmental sustainability as well as their attitudes. A second dimension that was already kind of recapped in the results presented earlier this morning has to do with European institutions and participations. In this year, this is the year of European elections. So in this year that is so important for the functioning of the EU, it's comforting to acknowledge that most European lower secondary school students express trust, relatively high trust in European institutions, and a relatively high sense of European identity, and also that notwithstanding, let's say, the stall that has been experienced in the last cycle, this sense has increased through time. So we are pleased by that. Also thinking about the fact that these students, the students who took part in ICCS 2022 are now 16, which means that in some of the European countries, they will also be active voters in these European elections. And we also note positively that the interest of participating to European election is relatively high, which is, let's say, a positive signal for us in the dimension of the progress and the maintenance of democratic citizenship in Europe. Now, it will be important in this sense to kind of deepen our understanding and knowledge of this dimension. And I would like to maybe mention one element in this sense, which is the possibility or check with countries their interest in follow-up studies, because it's especially this dimension of participation and trust. It's important with lower secondary school students, but it's especially important with students who are a bit at a higher level, so a bit older, and who become active citizens, possibly at the age of 18. And so it is interesting to understand whether member states are, considering or willing to let's say, follow up with ICCS type studies to deepen their understanding of the students of higher ages. And I guess this is my initial reply. Thanks.
Thank you, Daniele. I will switch to Roberto from Italy with the same question, the relevance of the studies and some examples of how it can inform policies.
Thank you, Thierry. I'm very happy to be here because I think it's particularly important to discuss about the topics related with this survey, and for us as a country, as Italy, is very important because we are implementing now several reforms, especially in civic education, and so is a way to check if these reforms are effective or not, what we should improve, what we should change in order to make it more effective. But at the same time, I would like to underline the relevance of the European Union support, and I experienced that and noticed that also for the other studies of this very important association, I mean ICCS, because I think we as European countries need this kind of studies and the feeling of unity, and to share several issues that we face. And I'm pretty well impressed, sometimes it happens, and about the percentage of our students expressing a positive feeling toward the European Union. This is a good point. Maybe not surprised, but at least a very good information. And my question, I was discussing with colleagues just before the coffee break, what will happen 3 or 4 years later, it means with the student of the upper secondary schools, because we have a different feeling, and connecting to what you were saying, maybe is important to have some kind of follow-up studies, maybe at national level, or smaller size dimension, but I think it could be very relevant. Of course, there are so many dimensions involved in it. It means they are going up, so we know that maybe the attitude is different, but anyway, I think we should take it into the consideration. And you know, I do believe that it could be a good starting point for our countries, I mean Italy and the other countries of the European Union, to convey to the school system also positive messages. I think it's extremely important today. For several parts of our societies, we receive a lot, and there is good reasons sometimes, of bad information, bad news, things that are not working well. But in this case, maybe we could start to capitalize also on this point. And connected to that, I would like to underline the importance to work together in order to find how to build a bridge between the field or the world of research and the school system, or everyday school system, because this is from my perspective, I think it is our duty, not only specific and clearly duty. I think this is the first reason, because we are paid by the taxpayers, is to find this kind of bridge. Maybe I don't know if it's your experience, but in my experience, I feel a kind of gap, to be kind, let's say in this way, between these very interesting and important topics, situation like this, and what is going on every day in our schools. I think this is the right position, and this association had the right numbers, the right possibility to study. We need also research in order to do that properly. But I think this kind of specific results on the European Union could be a very important starting point. At least in our country, in my country, I think it would be very well received from schools if we start to speak by speaking their language also, to find this kind of relation. I think it would be for the next waves, for the next activities of our association, could be a good, challenging goal. Thank you.
It works now. Okay, great. Then, okay. Thank you very much, Roberto, and also to stress that there are some positive things in the study that is very important to have in mind. So thank you to remind that. Let's go to Spain now with Carmen. So Carmen Tovar Sanchez is a director at Instituto Nacional de Evaluación Educativa, INE. Carmen is currently the director of his institute. She began as a secondary school teacher between 1996 and 2005, and since then she has worked at the National Institute for Educational Assessment, the unit of Ministry of Education, Vocational Training and Sport, which is responsible for the evaluation at the national and international level of the Spanish educational system, where she has held various positions. Internationally, she holds several positions. Carmen is the vice chair of the PISA governing board, as well as a valuable member of the IEA General Assembly, of course, and member of the governing council of the IESME. She is the author and collaborates in numerous articles and reports related to educational assessment in Spain, and regularly participates as a speaker in congresses on education and assessment. And she also delivers professional development courses for teachers and school principals. So thank you, Carmen. Same question for you, the relevance and some examples, maybe how it can be used for policy and practices.
Okay, buongiorno, buenos dias, good morning, everyone. I would like to start by thanking, as it cannot be in any other way, to our colleagues from the IEA for making this event possible, but also to my colleague and friend, Roberto from INVALSI. We have been together for many years, in many difficult moments, in many good moments as well. And of course, the University of LUMSA for putting up this beautiful building here for us in such a beautiful place such as Rome. It's always lovely to come back to Rome. And I would like to go back to something that Roberto has mentioned about thanking as well the European Commission for providing grants for the European countries to participate in these kind of studies, so that we can have this regional module, which I think it is very, very important to know how our students feel about being European, for example. And Valeria has mentioned that we can have coexisting identities, and I think that's true. In the case of Spain, I would add an additional layer, which would be regional, so we can feel from a region, from our country, and also from Europe and from the world. So I think that's something very important in nowadays, in such a globalized world. But going back to the question that Thierry has asked, civic education and citizenship education is a really relevant topic in Spain nowadays. And proof of that is that during the Spanish presidency of the Council of the European Union that took place last semester in 2023, it was one of our priorities, the promotion of European values and democratic citizenship. And in fact, there were many activities organized related to this topic, such as, for example, a presidential conference. Also, the conclusions that you have mentioned on the contribution of education to European values and democratic citizenship. Not to forget also that there was an informal ministerial meeting in Zaragoza where ministers from the countries that participated had the opportunity to debate about this important topic. So for us, it's a very relevant topic. Having said this, our interest is not limited to the EU framework, although of course it's something very relevant. We are very interested in extending it to other European non-member states, and of course to countries from other continents that we are hoping that they will participate in ICCS 2027. And due to this interest, we decided to participate in ICCS 2022, evaluation in which we hadn't participated since 2009. So for us, it's a pity because we only have 2 points in time to have data, but well, you know, one of those things. We decided to participate, but in spite of this interest, we realized when we started working with the items from ICCS 2022 that our curriculum didn't really cover largely some of the topics that were covered in ICCS. So we started to wonder that maybe some reforms were necessary. And this was even worse with the pandemic in 2019, because as you know, in our country, as in most countries, schools were closed for part of the academic year of 2019-2020. And even during the following year, things didn't go back to normality, but there were blended learning, remote learning. So that made that most of the instruction was based on basic skills. So maths, reading were prioritized, and some other topics that were also very important, but were taught more in a transversal way, such as civic and citizenship education, they were relegated to a secondary position. So we knew that we had gaps because of our curriculum, but also because of the situation when ICCS 2022 took place. So we were brave and decided to mitigate this aspect together with some others that needed changing in our educational system. And at the end of 2020, we passed a new law, the Alum Law, and this law introduced a new curriculum which was oriented towards the acquisition of the 8 key competencies. So that implied that the whole curriculum was articulated around the key competencies, citizenship being one of these key competencies. So it meant that every single subject had to contribute to achieving this competence and the rest of the competencies, of course. And on top of that, we thought this wouldn't be enough. We didn't want this just to be a transversal topic, so we introduced a new subject that every single student, at least once in primary and once in secondary education, had to learn, related to civic values and ethical values in education. So we thought that would be important to improve our situation that wasn't too bad in ICCS. We were above the average, but we realized there were things that there was room for improvement. So obviously, as you can see, ICCS has had a big impact in our educational system and also in our educational law. So we hope that with this, we are going to be able to improve our situation. And regarding what we expect from the future, and this is like my wish list for everyone for 2027, of course, we want to still measure some of the things that have been measured, because we need to see whether the changes we've implemented are working, and we need to see if we are improving or not. But also we want to, we are very interested in learning about other conflicts that have happened in the world in the meantime, and that will probably start soon. For example, that have already been mentioned here, the Ukrainian war and other wars that unfortunately are happening in the world nowadays. So these are things that were not covered in ICCS 2022 that would be important to see how students react to these wars, but also other things such as, for example, the evolution of technology. We would be very interested in knowing how IA is influencing our life and how we are adapting to these new situations. So those are topics we would like to include in ICCS, so hopefully. And of course, we would like to continue gaining insights into students' perspective on the EU and on Europe in particular. So please continue with the European module. And I invite other countries, like in my case, very interested in Latin American countries, to come back to ICCS so that we can have more enriching data. So just to sum up, I would like to say that participating in ICCS has been a great tool, because it has helped us monitor our education system, but we want also to use the data to influence educational policy, to transform the lives of our youngsters into a better one, more democratic, more European, and more international. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Carmen, for all this positive spirit. Thank you very much. I will now go up north to Sweden with Stephanie. Stephanie Plenty is a project leader at the Swedish National Agency for Education of ICCS Sweden, and she works at I already said that, the Sweden National Agency for Education, sorry. She completed a PhD in psychology, at the Australian National University, and she is also an associate professor in sociology. Prior to her current position, Stephanie worked at Stockholm University and the Institute for Future Studies in Stockholm, where research addressed socioeconomic and ethnic inequalities in young people's well-being and the importance of social context for positive development. So the same question for you in Sweden. What's the relevance of the studies and some examples maybe of how it can inform policies and practices?
Thank you, Thierry. First of all, I'd like to, of course, thank you for the invitation to come today. It's such a pleasure to be here. From a Swedish perspective, ICCS addresses one of the central purposes of schooling. Schools in Sweden are tasked with developing students' democratic competencies for active citizenship. So the Education Act states that schooling should introduce and support the value of human rights and the democratic principles underlying Swedish society. So Sweden has a long tradition of educating democratic citizens, and this focus goes all the way back to the conclusion of World War II. Schools' dual task of developing students' knowledge and citizenship, this should go hand in hand. It's not one or the other, according to the Swedish system. So the overarching goal is that students will develop knowledge, capabilities, and attitudes that enable them to actively participate as responsible citizens in our democracy. So ICCS is incredibly relevant because it explicitly investigates the interplay between knowledge and citizenship. In terms of impact on practice, I can say that the results from the EU report will be offered as a teaching resource for schools. In the lead up to the EU election, Sweden holds parallel elections in schools. So students get the opportunity to practice this voting process and get to learn about, in this case, the EU. We also hold parallel elections for the national elections. But in the lead up to the EU election, we are preparing a fact sheet that will be distributed to schools, summarising students' attitudes to the EU and also about Europe's future. We'll be distributing this to schools with the aim to boost teacher engagement in the school EU elections and also as inspiration for discussion points for debates and discussions in the classroom. ICCS 2022 results are also informing a new initiative to improve democratic principles in Swedish schools. So the Swedish Agency for Education has just released a program called Democracy Step by Step, and this is a detailed model on how schools can systematically work with issues of human rights and democracy, both in teaching and also in the school climate. We have a close dialogue with the group running that program, and the results from ICCS have informed the rollout of this program by informing relevant discussion points to take up with school leaders and teachers. So we're very proud of ICCS's impacts already. In terms of impact in terms of political discussions and public debates, ICCS has, together with other recent large-scale assessments, confirmed that a key area for policy to focus on is declines in test scores, absolutely. But the results have also pointed to issues around increased differences between students and schools. So it's raised questions about equality in the Swedish school system. Current political discussions are primarily focused on core subjects such as literacy at the moment. However, at the same time, there is increasing discussions about things like social cohesion, public trust, criminality, and gang involvement. But we have yet to see ICCS directly related to policy in these areas. We, however, at the Agency for Education are working hard to lift the profile of ICCS because it can contribute to practice and policy in these areas in many ways. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stephanie, for this insight. Thank you. Well, a lot of information, a lot of thoughts. Let's start. We have a bit of time for question. We will run a bit over the time, and we can go up to 15 past 12 if needed, let's say. But I will start. We have some question on YouTube channel, but I would like to start with all persons that are in the room, if there are hot questions now. For our previous speakers, of course, about the general results, or from the country perspective or the European Commission perspective, if there is any, don't be shy. No question for the moment. So please think about some question or comments for our colleagues. But I will just look at the chat, and there are some questions. There was a lot of question from Natia about the framework of the studies and how it's related to other framework, for example, the digital citizenship framework, and how finally these instruments are referenced to the other kind of framework, like competencies for democratic culture, which is also a Europe reference framework. So maybe Wolfram, or you want to say a word how the framework was thought, maybe to come back on that, and remind that it's accessible online, and also how the instruments then are derived from this framework, but just as a reminder.
Yes, that works now. Okay, yeah, the framework has been a collaborative effort. So basically, we have, since the beginning of ICCS, that the first thing we did for ICCS 2009, when this whole thing started, we had, of course, a background of CIVET, of the IEA Civic Education Study in '99. It was a reference point, but then with our expert group and together with our national research coordinators, we then came up with that framework. It has undergone several modifications because, of course, you grow with what you're doing, and then you think, oh, well, maybe, and a lot, I have to say, a lot came from countries, what we actually modified. We had very thoughtful input from the countries, and digital citizenship, or the concept of digital citizenship, is a good point, because that underlines that how things change over time, because when nobody was thinking about how we connect nowadays, that basically you can actually inform yourself right on spot about election results, about anything that happens in the world. We didn't have that when we started ICCS in 2006. And so, of course, there have been several modifications over time. And to the point how we developed the instruments, so basically, of course, everything that went into the instruments, and we had a lot of periods of piloting or field trialing before we go into the main data collection. And that is actually underpinned and based on the framework. Of course, it runs a little bit in parallel, because if you come up with new aspects, you also in parallel think about what may I want to include in my questionnaires or in my tests. I hope that kind of answers.
Absolutely, thank you very much, Wolfram. And to remind as well that it's important to remind that all the IEA studies are built in a collaborative way. I think it's important to remind each time, because as my experience from when we talk to journalists or whatever, they think that it was invented in some offices in Hamburg or Amsterdam by 3 people. But just to remind, this is absolutely not the case, and everything is done in a very collaborative way. So to be sure that it's compliant with every country's perspective. So thank you, Wolfram, to remind that. There is a question, a more concrete question, I would say maybe for a colleague from Czech Republic, if I understand, about the concrete support, question for you, Daniele, but from the European Commission to the ICCS, how concretely the European Commission is supporting ICCS. Maybe you can, of course, financially, but maybe you can remind the 2022 and what's the plan for 27, like a bit of advertising interesting countries.
Sure. Thank you very much for the question. Indeed, I mean, it's already, let's say, recapped. The support, to some extent, is in two directions. One direction is the financial support, and in 2022 was again 75% of the European, of the international fee. So given 100, what needs to be paid to IEA for the participation, the European Commission covers 75% of that amount. This is basically going to be the same type of support also for the next cycle of ICCS. But of course, in order to grant that support, we need, let's say, proof of the country participation. In this sense, we really encourage countries to indicate, especially to the IEA, that with a letter of commitment that they will participate to the study, because in order to identify the size of the, let's say, budget that is needed, we need to understand how many countries are participating. So this is, let's say, one dimension. The second dimension is that the Commission contributes, let's say, as another member of the, let's call it, family, contributes to the study, to the development, bringing in the aspects that are most relevant for the European Commission. So in a sense, it's a, let's call it, dynamic support, meaning we aim and are willing to contribute, to engage into discussion on what are the dimensions that are most relevant for the study also in 27, in order to have information that is that can bring us together and that can help us in understanding better this world. Like as I was mentioning before, I mean, for us is extremely relevant that the 2022 study included the dimension of sustainability, which is a key dimension for the Commission at this moment. So we are willing, let's say, and interested to continue this work also in the future.
Thank you very much, Daniele, and we are very, very grateful for the European Commission support, because it's really important to, in this kind of studies, to have as many countries as possible and to see the variety and to learn from a research point of view and policy point of view. It's really important to gather as many countries as possible. So thank you very much again for this support. There is a concrete question about how to do it if we want to apply for 2027 from NATIA. So you can write directly to IEA Secretariat. As Daniele said, we need some commitment to the IEA Secretariat, then to discuss with the European Commission. Thank you for that. You had some time to think about some question in the room. Yes, Bruno. Maybe it works. No, it's okay, it's okay. You can stay, yeah.
Thank you. It's just a comment about the importance of surveying all the students for having, because of the age, the fact that they are close to be active electors and so on. I think that you remember that we in Civic 99 tried to test an older population. What is the main issue in this? That one of the main important features of the AI study is that what we measure in this study are the common opportunity to learn students have. But at the highest stage of the education, the curricular difference are more increase across all the country participating. So it's very difficult, at least for the cognitive part of the study, to develop common instrument. But, and this is something that we could think about at the regional level, maybe that more focused study at the regional level, more focusing on common aspect, as we did, for example, for the European region, could be an opportunity to move in this direction. I think this is something that maybe could be interesting to explore.
Very interesting. Thank you very much, Bruno. And I don't know if there is some reaction on that, but I think it's positively viewed. Should be on the agenda of the next General Assembly, I think. Should discuss some more option in this way. I think it's an excellent idea. Thank you for that. There is a question about the feeling of belonging to Europe. Let's say it's what do students comprehend when they are questioned how European they feel? What is the conception of being European citizen beside being provided some rights? It's a quite interesting question. For example, Roberto, you said it was you were positively impressed by the positive views on Europe, and that was indeed shown by our previous speakers. So I don't know if other countries is the same reaction. I don't know, in Spain, for example, Carmen, if you also had this impression when you read the results in Spain or in Sweden, how the feeling was quite positive, in fact, even in your... Was it a surprise for you?
Well, the results were very positive in Spain. In fact, we Spanish students felt they were very proud of belonging to the EU. I think, well, we are not that surprised because I think we live in a globalized world. I think we are in a very open society. So I think it's they see the benefits of being able to move, to go abroad and work. So I hope even that percentage that didn't see as positive will change their minds by 2027. So we were not that impressed, but we were happy to see that our impressions were right.
Thank you, Carmen. Maybe in Sweden?
Yeah, so the Swedish results also showed quite a strong identity with Europe across there's multiple questions addressing this issue, and they were all very positive. Again, maybe not so surprising, but maybe a little bit surprising at the degree of how high the support was for European identity. I was more surprised by the rate at which it's increased across the 3 ICCS studies. We see that in Sweden there has been a very steady and obvious increase. I can't remember the exact numbers right now, but it's definitely increased a lot even just since 2016.
Interesting. I don't know, Roberto, if you want to add on that? Or?
I just would like to add small comments. I think we should reflect on the fact that maybe this positive attitude of students is related with the level of education. If you want to, if you see the advantage to be in the European Union, it means that you are in a circle where these kind of values are relevant. It means the possibility to move, the possibility to share your experiences with the other countries as well, and I think is related with the level of education. And we should reflect on it and underline again and again how the level of education is important in terms of the possibility to keep the main values of our democracies, I think.
Yes, and by the way, we have seen the correlation between the knowledge, not only, we talk about the basics, of course, but it's about the knowledge on civic and citizenship education and the values, which was also a very important point of the survey, I guess. Yes, thank you for that. There is any other question in the room? Yes.
The question is, I'm from the National Research Council of Italy, And about surveys concerning older students, I can say that we conducted a survey with students of the provincial student councils all over Italy, and we can confirm that a very positive attitude towards Europe as a whole. We published this research, so if you are interested, I can give you more information. And I have a very practical question for the previous panelists. So I heard that today you released the data of this survey, and I would like to know if also the data of the previous surveys in 2016 and 2022 are available, and 2029 are available, are open on the website. Okay, thank you.
I can happily confirm that the 2009, the 2016, and the 2022 data now are available. The key difference is that the R format, it becomes a sort of lingua franca for data analysis and data science. That's been added in this cycle. It's not currently available, I believe, for the earlier cycles. There's also Civic. So if you go to that data depository, you will find all of them. They're available there, and I would also say there is a US-based platform called Civic Leads that links to many other European, national, US, but also global resources on civic engagement. And it's also available through that platform soon.
Yes,
if I may, sorry, if I play with the hat of INVALSI, they are all available on our website, and you can download all the data also.
And and I would like to stress this important point. That means all the data are available in this kind of survey and IEA studies. And I think it's because it's a tremendous effort to produce all this data, well documented, etc. So that's really in terms of, you said, Roberto, the link between research and policy. This plays, I think, a key role to have such a transparency and availability for free. So that's very important. Thank you for that. We have a question, or a proposal, let's say, from Karel Av, and he said he had, or she, I am not sure, but sorry if I made a mistake, had designed a system of science-based concept for democratic citizen, and why not? And I said I will encourage Karel Av to contact you from Wolfram or Valeria and the future teams and IEA for the future, just to have the first exchanges, why not, on this concept. Any other question in the room? Not yet. Reflect. I have just maybe a question on it was interesting, Stephanie, you talked about the fact that in school, you organize in parallel a school election. Mm-hmm. So my question is about all these data and results. What is the kind of connection we may have to school? As you know, there is school and teachers. As you know, there is the teacher snippet, sorry. So it's a way to promote the results, not only for policymakers or let's say responsible of education system, but also for school and teachers. And that's my question, maybe, to how in a country do you have some kind of action to come back to schools or to promote this kind of results afterwards? Maybe Stephanie, you can start.
I guess I'm assuming it's the same for every country. It's a challenge, absolutely. We haven't solved it, even though I think we're making good steps at getting the information back to schools and also decision makers as well. So I gave just 2 examples today. One benefit, I think, or strength that Sweden has is that ICCS is implemented internally by the agency, the Swedish Agency for Education. So we have lots of so we have a unit that is dedicated to carrying out ICCS. It's the same unit that works with other large-scale assessments like TIMSS and PEARLS and PISA. So that's our section, but obviously in the agency there's lots of other departments. So we have a strength there that we go around and we present as much as we can the results from ICCS to other areas, so people working with teacher training, curriculum development, and so on. So that's one avenue. That's how we got involved in this initiative, Democracy Step by Step. That's not our direct colleagues, but it's other people within the same agency. So we do our best that way. Networking, I think, is the way as well. Actually, next month I'll be presenting the results of ICCS at a network for an intergovernmental network for the Nordic countries. So there I'll be presenting the ICCS results from a Nordic perspective. So in which case that was Denmark, Norway, and Sweden, but we will have representatives from different government agencies from all Nordic countries attending this meeting. So looking forward to spreading the ICCS results further. And in relation to actually teachers, I diverted a bit there, where we have ongoing plans to keep releasing these fact sheets. So we're trying to find a format in which we can disseminate the ICCS results in a way that's accessible to teachers. We know they're busy. A large report is not targeted towards them, but we don't want to stop just there with our large report. We want to do these shorter reports, just 2 pages, and also have a close dialogue with the school leaders and principals. Back to the Democracy Step by Steps program, another way that we're implicated in the rollout of that is that program has been tasked with prioritizing schools that are in greatest need. So there we will be using the ICCS data hopefully to run some analyses and make recommendations as to which types of schools can be or should be prioritized for the program. And that will, down the track, also connect with teachers and school leaders as well.
Thank you, Stephanie. I think it can give some ideas. I don't know, Carmen in Spain, do you have any such action?
Yes, it's, as Stephanie has said, is a challenge because people think these reports are for policymakers. And today we have also published like our European reports on the topic. But we are very keen on reaching teachers and all society with these topics, especially topics as important as citizenship. So we translate every single thing the IEA brings out, like the snippets. We think they are great to reach that kind of audience, because I am a firm believer that there are lessons to be learned for everybody in those reports, not just for policymakers, which of course they are as well. So together with the teacher snippet, what we do in Spain is like we publish posts in blogs, in our blog from our institution, which I invite you to read. It's a good way to learn Spanish as well. And also we have these small leaflets that we release every so often, which are called they're called our boletines. There are 4 pages, and we focus on a specific target issue within the report, and they are very well received. And of course, we're always open to go to any university, anywhere they call us to give a talk on the topic, because we think it's important that the data is there. It's a very, very rich data, and we try to encourage also researchers to learn that data is there. They can use that data for PhDs, for all sorts of research they want to do. Sometimes they say, we need data. Well, the data is there. It's a thing to reach them and to do secondary analysis on the data that sometimes we as institutions don't have time to do. So yes, we try to reach them. It's a challenge, but we do as much as we can. Together with the communication team at the IEA, we are in close contact all the time so that we can reach all the audiences.
Thank you, Carmen. And in Italy, do you have this kind of...
If I may, I would like to launch an idea or a proposal, if I may, of course. We had, as IEA, from my perspective, a good, very good precedent. It means the volume that was published about peers with very, very good example, very practical example. I think we should maybe go in this direction because from my perspective, of course, I'm a statistician, so I love data, and of course, I think leftist and so on analyses are important. But if we don't are able to provide example, very concrete example, how to use especially the framework, we can't reach the result that we want to reach. And I think this is a challenge, big challenge, also especially for researchers, university as well, because we love a lot our models, our theories are extremely relevant, but especially institutions like INVALSI or your institution, we should go also in this direction. And I think the volume of peers is excellent example. I love I was not involved, so I'm not advertising my job, but I think it was an excellent example in several meanings.
I fully agree, Roberto. You wanted to add, Stephanie?
I was just thinking on when you were mentioning that often as statisticians or academics, we can be sort of big with our theories and our models, and sometimes it's a challenge to come back to these practical information, concrete things, information that people's teachers can apply. And I actually am going to have a challenge next month. I'll be presenting the ICCS results. Also, it's at a knowledge festival for teachers. So that's another strategy which I forgot to mention, is to try and get involved in teacher training and professional development programs. So luckily, we were invited to be a part of this festival. So there's lots of different topics, and they have presenters on different topics that the teachers can sign up. So it's like a big, think of a music festival, but for knowledge for teachers. And I'm really looking forward to it. Having said that, I'm aware that the challenge will be how to present these results in a way that the teachers will see the use for them. I'm sure most people see the use for them, but actually how they can apply them in their practice. So it'll be a good and fun challenge.
Thank you, Stephanie. All these initiatives are very, very important, and we can see, depending on country, we can give ideas, and I agree with you also, Roberto, that the product from Perth was extremely valuable, so we can, of course, think about this kind of plans, and for the future for the association, that would be just great. And maybe, Daniele, what's your thinking about, let's say, about spreading all this information, in fact, because of course the European Commission is it's not so close as a teacher as on the country or ministries, but still it's not only getting some indicators, it's also spreading some results and culture of evaluation, etc.
Indeed, thank you. Well, again, the role of the European Commission in education is mostly some sort of support and coordination, because the responsibility of education finally rests with the member states. So what we can do is indeed what you just mentioned. It's helping to spread information and helping member states to collaborate. There is, for example, a standing group for indicators and benchmarks that has agreed on a set of different indicators or targets that are, let's say, referenced by all member states. that span to different dimensions, going from basic skills to digital and other dimensions. Civics is not one of the targets because there is no, let's say, agreement at the moment on either, let's say, including or any, let's say, target on these dimensions. However, there is, of course, a reflection and the possibility to do, to monitor, let's say, the development of the systems on a time-to-time basis, like it was done. There is, for example, the works done by Eurydice. There was a report done in 2017, and there will be a report in the future on the same topic. There is reflections on, well, whether to indeed condense and help the further spreading of the results of this report into policy briefs that could be of easier use, let's say, than the big international reports. But again, this is works, let's say, in part of work lines that we're working on, and that will be developed also in collaboration, of course, with the member states in the coming months.
Thank you very much, Daniele, and thank you again for the close collaboration and the support that the European Commission is giving to this study and to finance it, to support it, to spread the results. So this is really extremely valuable for our community and the study. Thank you. Sadly, we reached to the end of the event. Many more, we could have said many more things, maybe on several days, probably. But now we reached to the end. I wanted to thank our speakers, really, this on the first session, of course, with Wolfram, Valeria, Ralph, for their insights, and our speakers, Daniele, Carmen, Roberto, Stephanie, for all the inputs. I hope you enjoyed it. You've learned many things in the audience or online. You will receive online a link to say some advice or your thinking about this event. And I will encourage all of you to dive into this report and into the data as well, if you can, and to spread the results and all this very important data for our education system. Thank you very much, and take care.